In this lesson, we're going to see how we can use external projects from either Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator and see how we can bring those in After Effects and then animate the layers one by one to make a really nice customized animation. So if you know how to work with Photoshop or Illustrator, you can create some artworks, put them in separate layers, and then you can just bring it in on After Effects to animate those layers. So in the resource pack, I've left two projects. One of them is a PSD file and the other one is an AI file. PSD stands for Photoshop Document and AI stands for Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to go in my project panel, double click, and these are the two projects that you guys will have. And I'm going to start with the AI one. But when you're importing this, instead of a footage, we want to have this as a composition. So import that. Now you can see that the Halloween by FreePic is a composition. If I double tap the composition, I get all of my layers. So it's a bit pixelated because we've set this to quarter. And that just allows for a faster rendering. And just for us to not get any lag throughout our project. So as you can see, each of these layers belong to one of the elements. And we're going to kind of move these elements around, maybe add a text, and just make like a really nice animation. So I'm going to turn these off for a second, and I'm going to put a background behind all of these because it just looks weird. If you upload something without a background, usually just turns to black, and because we have a lot of colorful things, it's not going to be a good thing for us. So hold down Control or Command Y, get your solid, and then we're going to choose a Halloween-y color, maybe like this dark purple. Hit OK, and you can see the size is automatically set to the size of our composition. Hit OK, just bring this guy all the way down. Now if I turn these on, you can see that we have a background and the elements are showing up a lot better. Although I have to choose another color because the house is similar to the purple color that we have. Hit Control Y again. Let's go for, I guess we'll go for like a childish post. So we're going to get a bright color. Hit OK. Then drag this guy down. Alright, now everything is visible, unlike the first color. And we are going to move these guys around. Now, the thing about Illustrator is that when you put things in groups, like when you first download the projects from online, everything will be merged together unless you go in there and manually remove those layers from the group. But if you're going to be designing it yourself, just leave them in groups like this. We demonstrated how that would work in a previous lesson from the 3D layers lesson. So you should know how to do that in Illustrator. And we know how to separate those layers and what happens if all of these guys were in one group within Illustrator. So I just went ahead and separated these, and now you can see they're separate. So we're going to start with one element at a time. I'm going to name these. Naming layers is going to help you a lot. It will be less confusing, and you don't have to click to see what the layer is. You can just read the name. Right click. And I came into the layer, just close that, go back to your composition. Then we have the pumpkin. And finally, we have some background decor. All right, so let's start with the ghost. Now, because the ghost is flying, I'm going to turn this off so we can see it better. Because our ghost is going to fly and we want it to have this cute motion, we're going to use position and rotation at the same time. So on your ghost layer, hit P to get the position. And I'm going to turn on the stopwatch because this is the starting point. I'm going to move in a few seconds. I want it to move really slowly, so I'm coming in 1 second. And then along the y-axis, which is the second one, just bring it down. And then another second in, I'm going to bring it back up so we could have that up and down motion. Grab all keyframes and hit F9. So you can see my ghost is just moving up and down. And we could just loop this if we want. Or just copy these guys. Let's just copy them. And paste them at a relative distance. And I'm going to expand my timeline. I feel like it's not equal. Let me bring the time indicator. Yeah, we can see that this is not exactly on 1 second. I want it to have a rhythm, so I'm just going to make sure that everything is on the exact time that I decided. So I decided to go 1 second at a time, so I need to make sure that my keyframes are also like that. Expand my timeline, and I'm going to close my project. Just bring it around maybe 6 seconds. So after 6 seconds, my project just ends. And expand this to 6 seconds. Then I'll just grab the, let's see what happens here. He goes down, up, and I want him to come down. So I'll just copy this guy and bring it here. To copy, you hold down Control-C or Command-C. To paste, Control-V or Command-V. Let's play that. And you can see we have a simple motion of our ghost just going up and down. If you want this to be slower, you would have to kind of limit the amount of keyframes that you have, or you could just expand your timeline and move each of the keyframes to create a space between them. So I'm going to go for like 1.5 seconds. So this guy will come here and grab the rest. 2.5, 3.5, and you can see instead of 6 seconds, we kind of moved it up by 0.5 second. So now it's a lot more slower. I'm going to leave it like this. I'm happy with the speed. Close my timeline again. So now we created this really simple movement with a Adobe Illustrator layer. And we are also going to add the other animation that we talked about, the other transform, which is the rotation. So once you're done with position, go on Ghost again and hit R to bring rotation. Again, stopwatch for where you want it to start and then move in a few seconds in. I'm gonna expand this to 2 seconds. So for position, it was 1.5. For rotation, it's 2. You don't want the movements to be moving around the same second because it will look a little weird. So I suggest maybe leaving 0.5 second distance between the two transform, between rotation and position, just so it looks more natural. And I'm going to decide what angle I want my ghost to move. So it's like 7 degrees, right? I'm happy with that. And then at 4 seconds, it's going to be 0 again. And then until the end of our thing, actually 6 seconds, we decided 2, it's going to be 7 again. Or in this case, it will be -7 because we wanted to also move down. And we're going to leave it be like that. So here it's 0, here it's 7, 0, -7. Easy ease all of the keyframes, F9. Play it back. And you can see our ghost is kind of floating and it's also turning at the same time. And that's really nice. And now I'm going to do the same thing with the rest of the layers, but we're going to come back to this ghost layer because we're going to add kind of a blinking motion to the ghost. so it blinks as it moves. That's like a fun little thing you guys can do. Gonna go in Potion, turn it on. And with Potion, we don't have much of an animation, to be honest. Zoom in and see what we can do. Maybe we could add like a simple rotation for it. So hit R again. We don't need position because it's just going to be standing in one place. Just hit R, come in 1.5 seconds in. Let's go with like a really slight rotation. So like 3 degrees, 3.5, 0. Then we go 5.5, -3. We'll just put one for 7. Go back to 0. F9, all of the keyframes. Play it back. We have this really slight rotation movement, which might not even be visible. We're just trying to make things look as animated and as natural as we can. Right, now let's close this, get to the house. And I'm not too sure about the house. What could we do to make it look cool? We could just leave it be like this because houses aren't really supposed to move that much. But this guy was like a magic potion. Let's turn on the pumpkin. And with the pumpkin, we could do something. We could make the pumpkin maybe appear from below or maybe come from the top. So let's add a position keyframe. Before I turn on the stopwatch, I'm going to just move this guy down. Oops, that's the house. Go on the pumpkin and move this guy down so like he appears. Turn on the stopwatch, come in a few frames, go back up, and I want him to kind of bounce down. So come down and then go back to the final position. F9 the keyframes. Let's play it back and then we have to move the keyframes in a relative spot. This part is a little too slow right here. So I'm just going to drag these two and bring them in closer. Let's play it back. Alright, so you saw he went up and then continued bouncing before finally settling for his final position. Alright, and then we're also going to do the eyeball thing with this guy too. Actually, I was thinking that we do the eyeball with the pumpkin and not with the ghost because they're not alive. But the pumpkin is, so I'm going to leave the ghost be. I will, however, go in ghost again. And I'm going to move the keyframes back. Expand this to 8 seconds. Move it back, and in the first keyframe, I want him to kind of be out of frame. So I'm going to go here, and then around here he comes back. Then does his regular movement. Let's start that over. So he comes out of nowhere and just starts moving around. I think that looks better. And the pumpkin just appeared and kind of settled down. Then we're going to add the eyeball animation that we talked about. Then finally we have this background decor. I'm going to expand this, stretch it out. Make it as big as the screen. And we could just simply make this fade in. There's not anything special you could do. Hit T on your keyboard. 0%. Turn on the stopwatch. Maybe 1 second in, just before everyone appears. Turn it back to 100%. F9. And we're also going to do the same thing with the house and the potion. Just copy these keyframes. T. And T as well. So let's play this back. You can see everything appears, and these guys are moving. I'm not a big fan of the little decor in the back. I feel like it's a bit too distracting. And if you didn't want any layer, you could just simply go on it and hit backspace. And now it's gone. So now I could add a text here. Let's do that. I'm going to grab all of my layers first. First layer, Shift, last layer, M to close off all their panels. Let's create a text. Go to Text Tool. Type in something. Let's go for like boo. Control A to select it all, and we're going to kind of customize our text. I'm going to make it smaller so it fits in the space that we have. And I'm going to try to find a font. I guess this will do. I was hoping we could find something more spooky. Guess we'll just stick with this. So it's spooky, but a little fun. And that will be a good addition. Turn this to 0. And maybe slim up the letters a bit. And I'm going to add a stroke color. And I'm going to get the eyedropper tool because we have a color on our screen. Just grab this orange. And I'm just going to, let's see what we could do. Okay, it was italic. Just turn that off. And this is our text. I'm going to move the ghost. Let's see. I guess the ghost is in the right position. And I just need to animate my text, so I'll make it kind of bounce in. So I'm going to hit scale, turn it to 0, turn on the stopwatch, come in maybe a few frames in, turn it back to more than 100, so like 110, and then a few frames forward. 100, actually less than 100, 90, and then finally it's going to be 100. Then we're gonna grab all of them, F9, see how it looks. So like it appears in like a bouncing manner, and I'm just gonna bring this text layer below all of the other layers. So my pumpkin goes above it, and so does the ghost. And I feel like that creates a nice, just a nice animation. Zoom out. I'm going to see what else I could add. We have an empty space here that I don't know what we can fill it in with. Maybe I could grab another ghost. So Control D, and we're just going to move the second guy. I'm going to reset the transform for the second ghost. Just reset everything. Turn off the other things. I'm going to right click, transform, and then just flip it vertically. Oops, sorry, horizontally, not vertically. Let's go back here, flip horizontal. So now they're like buddies. I'm going to grab Shift and just make it smaller, so it's like a baby ghost. Grab this guy and put it here. Alright, and then I can add I can either copy the keyframes for this, or I could start over. Guess I'll just grab these for, well, this won't work because the position is set there. So I do have to do this from the beginning when it comes to the thing. When it comes to the transform. Alright, I'm going to go back in here, start from the beginning. I accidentally brought back the names back to what they were. Just leave it be, we're almost done. And I'm going to first make the baby ghost maybe appear from the top because the parent is coming from the side. So we're going to move this guy along the y-axis, move it the opposite way. Turn on the keyframe and just make this guy slowly come down. a little more down than it would. And then a few frames in, it goes back up to its final position. And then it's just going to continue moving down and then up. And I'm going to play this back, see if the speed is okay. Okay, so it's a little too fast. I'm just going to drag out all of these keyframes, just bring them in and add some space between them. Let's see how that looks. Alright, so naturally the younger creature would be a lot more energized. So I'm going to leave that be, and instead I'm just going to copy these two and just paste them accordingly, like so, and just continue pasting until I am at the end of my project. Alright, I'm going to leave it be here. Let's first check if it's okay. So it is moving up and down in a fast manner compared to the parent. And I'm just going to continue what I was doing. Just hit Control V with the copied keyframes. And we're done. Then let's go back to rotation and just add like a few rotations. Turn on the keyframe. Once it comes down, we are going to add, we added 7 for the parent. Let's go with like 5 for the, child. And I'm going to place these in a longer manner. I don't want them to be as fast as the position. So 5, 0, and then -5 for it to move left and right. -5, or any number that you choose. Come in a few more frames. 0. And I'm just going to copy these two. I have to see if it's -5 first. This keyframe is 0. Let's type in -5. Go back on this keyframe. So this is a -5. This has to be 0. Oops. Zero. And then 5. And finally 0. Let's play that back and see. So you can see it's moving slightly left and right. And we have this cute Halloween animation. Right, so before we continue, we're going to do the eye thing that we mentioned for the pumpkin. So M on this guy, let me just rename them. Baby Ghost. So you know which layer I'm referring to. Alright, go back, and I'm just going to go in the pumpkin, double click on the pumpkin to enter the layer. I'm going to zoom in, see what is going on. Go back in here and set this to full. There we are. Now we can see. I'm going to come to the point, although it doesn't matter here. Here you're just working with the layer alone. So I'm going to zoom in, hit V. And I'm just going to add some, I wouldn't say mask layers. Then we could do it in the composition too. Let's turn that off. Go to composition. Look at where the pumpkin appears, which would be here when it's stable. If you do it on a stable position, it'll look a lot more easier. It'll be a lot more easier. Grab the hand tool and just come down to the point where you meet the pumpkin eyes. get the pen tool. Before that, I'm just going to hit M on the blue layer. So I know that at around 3 seconds, I want my pumpkin to start blinking. Click away from the pumpkin layer, and we're going to get the pen tool, or you could get a ellipse actually. Get a circle, turn off the hit on the word stroke, set it to none, hit OK. Now for fill, we want to get the eyedropper tool and get this exact orange shade. And I'm just going to, you can see the star next to it, hold down Shift and just cover up the eyes. Hit V, then Control D to move the second ellipse to the other eyeball. Now because our shape is stable, it's not going to move as much. And now at 3 seconds, I'm going to open one of them. And actually, let's do it in 2 separate layers. So this is shape 1. Click away. We're going to Control D, make another shape layer, and move that to another area, to the other eye. All right, shape 1 and shape 2 need to move at the same time. So let's work with shape 1, and we're going to work with the opacity. So hit T. I'm going to make it 0. 0% here. How long do we want it to blink for? Let's go for like half a second. And then we're going to, well, actually opacity wouldn't work. We need to kind of cut this guy up and duplicate it. So I'm going to go back to, I'm show you guys an easy way. We'll get into difficult ways later. So on shape 1, where we had 2 ellipses, I'm going to hit Control and do that again. Get my ellipse tool, Shift for a perfect circle, and then we're going to duplicate the ellipse. So now we have 2 ellipses. Hit V to just move this guy to the other eye. And we're only going to be working with this layer. So I'm going to rename this to eyes, or just blink. And I'm going to expand my timeline. All right, so we're going to have to duplicate and place this guy on places where we want the pumpkin to blink. So Control Shift D to cut it here, because before that we don't want him to blink. And then just leave as much as you want for him to blink, so half a second. Control Shift D, delete the rest of this guy. So now if I play this back, you can see it's looking, blinks, comes back. And then we're going to Control D here, come into where we want him to blink again, which I guess we'll go with like 5 seconds. Drag this guy at 5. Right, it's blinking, and then finally at 7 seconds, Control D, grab the third box here. Let's play it back and see if that's smooth enough. It's going to appear, it's going to sit down, and it's going to blink, and then blink again, and then the final blink. And if you want, you have to change the color here. Just going to leave it be. Just want to see how we can add a simple blinking animation to our pumpkin, like we did. Alright, so this was the Adobe Illustrator file. You saw how we were able to work with the separate layers, and I'm just going to show you guys how the Photoshop layer works, and I'm just going to delete everything. Delete. So we're back to where we started. I'm going to close these panels too. Double click. Now let's get our Photoshop file. Composition, retain layer sizes. It's going to import it. And this is something you will probably get. Make sure it's on editable layer styles and not on merge layer styles into footage, because we want to keep the appearance there and also leave the layers be separate. Hit OK. And I'm going to double click on composition. Now notice that unlike the Adobe Illustrator file, this is the file we're getting, by the way. Unlike the Adobe Illustrator file, we have this thing instead. Now with Photoshop, when you group things and you leave the groups out in the open, so you don't put them in a master group, once you're done with your project, the groups will appear on After Effects. So I made a group, the thing I downloaded made a group for social media. If I double click this, I come in, I can see there are 6 layers in social media, which is this tiny part up there. So when you group things in Photoshop, this is the perk of using Photoshop, you get to keep those groups in After Effects and you can edit them separately, which allows for a really more detailed animation. So I'm going to delete the layers I don't need. Don't need that. Backspace. Don't need that. Then we have text. And I'm just going to double click on text. You can see I'm in this group. And I'm just going to delete the ones on top. This is a website homepage design. You guys can keep it that way. But I'm just trying to show you guys how you can make a more complex animation using Photoshop. Then you open design, double click, you're in design. These are what we have. We have button 1, get rid of it. Button 2, so we'll get rid of that too. Some random arrow, which is actually related to our illustration. I'm going to leave that be. And then we have each of these illustrations. So this is a single one. That's another one. Go back here, and then we have the background, which is just this. I believe it's a single layer. Yeah. So we don't need to open the group for this. I'm going to turn this back to quarter. Come back to investment free pick. And I'm going to, in order to make a more detailed animation, I need to do each of these groups separately. So let's start with the easy one, which is the text. Go in here, and you're only working with the text layers. So I'm going to make the title, hit P to move from here to here and just appear. Go back to the left, out of the frame, turn on your stopwatch, and then move in here. So I forgot to move in a few frames and then bring it back. Bring this guy back. I'm going to hit Control R or Command R and then just drag one of these vertical lines to make sure that I am placing my second keyframes in a way that aligns with the other words. Come back, there we are. Hit F9, let's look at that. So it appears out of nowhere and it comes into frame. We're also going to kind of make it faster, so I'm going to bring the second keyframe only. Click away, grab this guy, bring it in closer. Play that back, and it appears it was loading. Let me actually cut my composition and zoom in to my frame. So this guy is going to appear like that at that exact speed unless you bring in the keyframes closer. Then we have the subtitle, which I will also make it come out of nowhere. Hit P, get out of frame, and then turn on the stopwatch. Now I want this guy to appear after the first title. So I'm going to drag it in the center, or we could do that after we've added the keyframes for all of them. I'm going to move in a few frames and then bring it in back. Make sure to align it with the rest of the text. Okay, we still have some room for that. Zoom in and drag this guy to make it align with the other text. We have the body text, again P. And you may have wondered what happens if we just copy the keyframes and then paste it in the other layer. The thing is that when you're talking about position, you're talking about the exact number of the X and Y location. So if you do copy it for another layer, you're going to end up with two text overlapping one another. And that's just not going to work because you want people to be able to read both text. So make sure you do each of these separately so that you get the right positions every time and you don't end up with multiple text pressed on top of each other. I'm going to move it back and press the stopwatch. Align it here and then bring it back to my... Oops, it's too far. Bring it back to where it was. And we have a sign in button and the read more, we don't need those. I'm going to turn those off. Right, then F9 all of the keyframes. And right now, if you play this back, we have text appearing at the same time and ending at the exact same spot. But to create the order of importance for my animation, I will have to change the time in which each of them appears. So this guy is the most important, and is the subtitle, and then it's the body text. So I'm going to make the title appear first, move this guy here. This guy will appear after that, and then this guy comes here. So we have this staircase motion. And now if I play this back, you can see this guy appears, then that, and then that. So that creates an order of importance for readers to understand. So we did that with the text. Let's go into design, or just go back here and double tap on the design. That's if you're seeing the groups. If you're going to use this project that is in the resource pack, you will have these groups. But if you're designing it yourself and you're only seeing you can see it says PS and it's a blue icon, then you don't need to, there won't be any groups for you to double tap into. Right, so we have a lot in this layer and we have to just design each one. So I can see we have some kind of decors, which are these circles and like this little arrow. Let's see what this is. What is that exactly? I'm going to hit Edge and see what shape 3 is. So I'm going to delete shape 3. Don't need that. Zoom out. Then we have some stuff for the items that we deleted. Come up here, and I'm just going to delete those because there's nothing for them to stand on. So we have some coins. Those are the coins. And we have an illustration. Now, we learned how to parent things in a previous lesson. And seeing that the coins are connected to this rocket, we need to parent these into illustration 1. Just rename it into rockets. So coin 1 and coin 2, grab this spiral thing, parent it to rocket. Now whatever movement the rocket has, these coins will move with it. Right, then we have illustration 1, which is the people, and then illustration 3, which is that thingy there. We have shape 5, which is this guy. I guess we won't need that, right? We could make the rocket move along it. Right, so let's start with the rocket. I'm gonna first hit P on my keyboard and just drag this guy just out of frame. Start from this position. Hit R to rotate it. Because the stopwatch is not on, we won't be seeing anything. So it's going to move in like this until it reaches maybe here. So I'm going to move it out of frame. Hit P on my keyboard. Start the stopwatch. Then using the hand tool, I'm going to move in a few frames. like this, then move it upwards towards here or any other location you need. Move it a few frames, move it to the left because there's like a curve. A little bit more. We have one up here, one here, and then one up here, which is the final spot. So now if you play this back, you can see it's moving along that curve. It's going up and down. F9 all the keyframes. Now let's go and work with the rotation. So from the beginning, turn it on. Move into where it needs to rotate. So over here, it needs to kind of turn upwards. So like this. A few more frames. It needs to move down a little. And then finally needs to rotate to the final position, which would be somewhere around here. Let's see. Yeah. Again, F9, all of the keyframes. Go back and hit play. And you can see it's like moving really awkwardly upwards. And to make it faster, obviously you would have to hit P and then just close in the space between these guys. So I'm going to do that because I want it to move a lot more faster. So I'm going to grab all of the keyframes and just bring it in. Let go of that one and then bring the rest. Do that and just keep doing it until it looks good. Final keyframe. It's not perfect. I'm just going to leave it be. So it moves a lot more faster. And I also need to make this, so now we need to change the R as well. Yeah, you can see. So the P ended at around 2.5 seconds. Hit R, I need to bring these guys onto 2.5 seconds as well. So finally, when it stops, it's in a right position. Now let's make this line, which I believe is shape 5, to slowly appear. So it's appearing with the rockets. So on shape 5, get your, let me get the square. I think the square will look good. All right, and we're going to mask the layer. So I'm going to create this line. Control T on that mask layer. Rotate it. Which will be a little hard to do because it's such a weird shape. And weirdly, there's a lot of layers, a lot of mask layers. Didn't know they were here. Okay, let's just delete this layer. It's going to be complicated because we have 3 masks at the same time and we're not that advanced yet. So the rocket is just going to come out of nowhere and it's going to stay up here. And then we could maybe ask it to rotate. Create a keyframe there. Go for like 14 seconds. Sorry, 14 degrees. Come back to 16 degrees. So it's like moving in like that once it's finished. So it's like I'm here. And we're going to cut the timeline. We're not going to extend our animation that much. And then we're going to work with the other things. So the circles and this one arrow, we're just going to make it appear. It's not much you could do with a circle. Hit S. Turn it all to 0 because we're selecting all of them. Turn on all of the keyframes. Come in maybe like 1.5 seconds. 110, I want it to bounce in. And then go in a few more seconds and then a few more frames. Go to 80. Just drag this a little closer. Finally, to 100, which is the final scaling of all of them. Grab all the keyframes, F9, go back up, and you can see they slowly appear. If you want it to appear faster, just drag the first keyframes and bring it in closer. Play that back. You can see they slowly appear and they bounce and they just stay still. Hit M on all of them. Weirdly, we have a lot of mask layers. I don't know why. Something to do with the project that was made. It's alright. Let's see. We have this guy. I'm just going to make this, because it's below the people, I'm going to make it appear from the behind of her shoulder. Before turning on the stopwatch, I'm going to just drag it in a place where it's not visible. Turn on the stopwatch, and at 1, I'm going to, around 1 second, I'm going to make it come up here. And then here, just going to continue going up and down before it settles for the final position, which is here. Gonna grab all of these keyframes, F9, and I'm just gonna make the start of this animation at around 1 second, or where I want my people to show up. So I'm gonna keep it at 1 second, and I'm gonna go on position, bring these guys all the way down, and then turn on the stopwatch. And to ensure that I'm getting a straight line, I'm going to first zoom out, hold down Shift, or don't hold down Shift. I'm just going to bring it up to where it covers that thing. So I'm actually going to do it with this, so I ensure a perfect animation. So along the y-axis, we're going to go to the right side. Turn on the position keyframe. Come in around maybe 1 second, and then bring it back to where they were, which was around here. I want to make sure that that guy is not showing up. And at the same time, we're going to go for T. Turn the opacity to 0, and maybe halfway in, like this, I'm going to make it, forgot to turn on my stopwatch. Turn on the stopwatch, around half a second, we're going to make it 100. And also F9. So play this back, they're going to appear like this. The rocket is going to show up, and that guy is going to be there. And you could add some looping animation if you want. I'm just going to leave it be, or just around the point where the animation stops, which is here. Just cut my composition short. M to close all of the tabs. Play this back, and forgot to make this guy. Hit T. Make it 0, because I want it to just appear when the lady's there. It's going to be 0 here. Around this part, it's going to be 100%. F9, M, play it back, see if everything runs smoothly. And it does. Alright, and now if we go back to, I'm going to close these off. Investment by free pick, you can see that everything is moving just like we assigned them to, and they're just coming in together. But because we went in those layers or groups, let me cut this short, replay it, go back, Because we went in each of the groups, we were able to kind of do it in a less confusing way. And now you can see that it looks animated and looks fun. And you could use this for any project that you'd like. So that's how you use Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator files using After Effects. Personally, I use Photoshop files because you can see you can group them. And when it comes to textures, I find that Photoshop works a lot more better, but as you saw, Adobe Illustrator works just as well. And the perks of Illustrator is when it comes to vector files. So depending on what you're doing, you would choose either one or maybe a mixture of both. So you would do the initial editing or creation of the vectors in Adobe Illustrator, and then in Photoshop you're going to add your textures or anything else that you want. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I will see you guys in the next one.